We fought a Cold War for 40 years against governments that forced all persons subject to their authority to carry government-issued identification cards. Wow. How much more un-American can the American government get? Where are your papers is a command that strikes at the core of freedom of movement and the right to privacy in a free society. Surely there are less intrusive ways to keep track of lawful and unlawful immigrants without assaulting the fundamental rights of us all. Where will this end? The proposed ID cards that the government is now considering are biometric. Thus, the police can swipe the card and learn much about the bearer's medical, legal, and travel history, none of which may lawfully be made available to the government absent the consent of the owner of the card or absent a warrant issued by a federal judge based upon probable cause of crime. Freedom needs breathing room. Explaining or justifying one's presence to agents of the government stifles that breathing room and leads to totalitarianism. Joining me now to talk about all of this is Lew Rockwell, chairman and founder of the Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama. Lew, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Judge, great to be with you.
I was not surprised, but I was scandalized when I read just this morning Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, Senator Charles Schumer, Democrat of New York, were meeting with the president in order to formulate legislation that would require every person in the United States of America who is employed to carry a biometric identification card with them, something even the British government rejected in the past 10 years. How un-American could the government get if it ever forced this upon us?
You know, Judge, the other day on the GE network, I saw somebody saying that you're a member of a hate group or allied with hate groups if you think that America is in danger of becoming a police state. Well, of course, we obviously are moving towards a police state, and this proposal by Graham and Schumer and Obama, is one indication. In fact, this is probably a good rule in life. If Obama, Schumer, and Graham are for something, you know it's evil. You don't even have to look into the details.
I mean, we know that there's no authority in the Constitution to require Americans to carry papers of any sort. We're not talking about a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle on a government roadway. We're not talking about a passport legitimately to leave the country or enter the country. We're talking about papers which would justify you going from one spot in Alabama to another, or me going from one spot in New Jersey to another. This strikes at a number of not only natural rights, but rights that are specifically protected by the Constitution. What do these people think they're accomplishing if they were to force such a radical change in American life that the police could stop you and say, okay, Mr. Rockwell, where are you coming from? Where are you going to? And let me see that card. I want to swipe it.
Well, Judge, they want control over us, and that's why they're doing this. It has nothing to do with terrorism, nothing to do with illegal aliens, which is the excuse for this particular piece of legislation. They want control over us, and they want to know everything about, as you say, our medical records, our financial records, any legal records, the average cop, and of course, it's far more than cops. There are armed agents of the federal government in every single one of these departments.
Right.
They're vastly increasing in number and powers, and they want, we're just cash cows to them. We're just people, just like in an airport with the TSA, you just salute them, do what they say, don't look them in the eye, or do look them in the eye, or whatever the rule is.
Right.
They should be able to go through your belongings, go through your car, go through your person. You have no rights whatsoever. You're just a thing to them. And, of course, this is not the constitutional way. It's not the American way. I hope people wake up to this.
I like you, strongly oppose what the TSA does. It's an assault on individual dignity. When people say, what do you have to hide? I have everything to hide. I have my privacy. I have my dignity to hide. And someday I hope that the majority of Americans agree with that. But I could avoid the TSA by not flying. I can't avoid this ID card of Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer unless I don't work for a living and starve or live off of my savings. There would be no way around this. This would be an imposition on us by virtue of our presence in America as people engaged in commercial transactions. Where is the authority for that in the Constitution? I suppose the answer is they don't care if there's authority in the Constitution.
You know, the Constitution is just a piece of paper to them. And this plan was first brooded about in the Clinton administration after the Oklahoma City bombing. President Bush wanted to do it in the Patriot Act. They didn't quite get it. Everything now, of course, under Obama, they're moving further towards us. It's totalitarian. It smacks of Nazi regimes, as you mentioned, communist regimes. This is not American. And I think more and more people are, you know, as Gerald Celente mentioned in the previous segment, more and more people are waking up to what's happening. That's why they want to control us. That's why they want to shut us up. That's why they want to be in control of whether you have a job or not. And again, I think people are waking up to this, and this is why they're attempting this kind of thing, to control us, to shut us up. But we must not be controlled. We must not be shut up. And if I can quote what Gerald said, don't follow your leader. Those are lemmings follow their leaders. Be an independent individual.
We are chatting with Lew Rockwell, founder and chair of the Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama. Think of it this way, Lew. If someone is arrested for a crime, the first thing the government agents who arrest them are supposed to say, under the Constitution, under federal law, and under laws of all the states are, you have a right to remain silent. And those agents who have done the arrest, whether it's a valid arrest or an invalid arrest, lack the authority to get the travel records, the medical records, and the legal records of the person that they've arrested without getting a search warrant first. But under this scheme proposed by Senators Graham and Schumer and apparently received with open arms by the White House, you would have fewer rights as an American walking across the street than you would as a person validly arrested for probable cause of criminal activity.
But, Judge, as you pointed out, the president thinks he has the right to kill you if he decides you're a bad guy just on his own say-so. They have the right to assassinate you. So given that they have the right to assassinate you if they claim that you're a bad guy, why shouldn't they know your identity? Why shouldn't they know everything about you? But again, I think people are resisting. They're not going to get their health care bill through. They're not going to get a lot of the other stuff they want through. There's huge growing resistance in this country. That's why we see propaganda against it. That's why they try to make you seem politically incorrect if you don't want to have the government control every aspect of your life. But people are not putting up with it, and this is actually, despite everything that's going on, a great moment in American history as the American people begin to resist, continue to resist the Leviathan in D.C.
You know, I think you put your finger on something very interesting, Lew, and I agree with you. Very few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its maximum hour of danger. In your life and in mine, I do not recall, I suspect you agree with me, a moment of danger toward our freedom coming from within, coming from the very government that we have elected, chosen, and permitted to exist like we have now. This is a moment that tests the courage of patriots and lovers of freedom like not any moment before in your lifetime or mine.
No, and it's not al-Qaeda. It's not foreign governments that are threatening us. It's the American government that is the biggest threat to our freedom, to our property, to our lives, and that's what we have to resist.
I think that people all over the country are coming to realize they simply don't want federal bureaucrats between them and their doctors, and they simply don't want federal agents to be able to stop them on the streets. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. There are even people on the left who are big government lovers who agree with us on these particular principles. Dennis Kucinich, for example, who agrees with you and me on very little, condemns the concept of having a government-issued ID that the government can demand of you as any moment. What will it take for the powers that be to realize Americans will not permit the federal government to assault core American values like freedom of travel and basic human dignity and privacy?
I think the resistance to the census is one indication. Constitutionally, they have the right to count us, to enumerate us.
Right.
They don't have the right to ask our race. They don't have the right to ask how many bathrooms we've got in the house and all the other information, these big, thick federal forms. People are resisting that, too. I think more and more people are resisting. They're waking up. Your books, your television show is helping. Ron Paul, of course. There's a revolution brewing in this country, a peaceful revolution of resistance to federal tyranny. And I'm very glad to be alive at this moment and participating in it, and I know you are too.
And
You're leading it.
And I'm very glad that you're able to share your time with us on Freedom Watch. Lew Rockwell, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.